And prior to that, I've been working in the charity sector for just over 10 years, always in the trust and grants field, worked for a number of different charities in terms of scale, from small scale to large scale, and did a little bit of freelance actual fundraising as well for quite a lot of small charitable organisations that didn't actually have in-house fundraisers, and worked with various different funders, from funders who kind of give the sort of small end scale grants from sort of the £200 upwards up to actually large sort of £1 million grants from Heritage Lottery or National Lottery. So Lily asked me to come and talk to you a little bit about generating income from different grants schemes that are out there to help your organisations. And I'm going to pop, I believe Lily's creating all of you a shared resource. So I'm going to pop this in there for you as well, so you can have a look at these slides afterwards. So you don't need to worry about taking notes or anything. It will all be there as well with the documentation as well. So there's, I suppose, just to give an overview of what Trust and Grants covers, there's loads of different income streams really. So from sort of small scale family trusts that have been set up when people have passed away and they want to leave their money to charities, they may put it into a trust that you can then apply to, up to larger, as we talked about, Heritage Lottery, government funding, local authority funding. Each county has a local community foundation. So Oxfordshire has one, Bucks has one, so does Berkshire, and they're very much focused on supporting local charities within their local community that work with people on the ground. So they're quite a good opportunity. So there's loads and loads of different avenues that you can actually approach. And as I said, the slide will be in there, so you'll better sort of look back at this and kind of see where the different options are that you can consider. What makes successful grant funding is, depending on whether you're going for a small scale grant or a large sales grant, it's the same. There's kind of key steps in terms of when you want to apply for funding. I suppose the first stage is always research. So there are lots of free tools out there. Some of you may already come across these. So sort of online databases that you can search for to match your project or your organisation against funders out there, so that when you're trying to apply for them, you're not going with such a wide net, but you're trying to hone it down a little bit more to make it more realistic to be successful. There's obviously lots of local community and networks out there, which you're already all part of, and talking and sharing ideas is always a really good one. Talking about what successes you've had in terms of funding, looking at competitive organisations and their annual accounts is also another good one, because quite often organisations will list in their annual accounts who they've secured funding from. So that's always a really good go-to. If you've got trustees, reach out to them. Quite often they'll be well connected in your local area. They may know individuals that have wealth that could support you, or they may know individuals that sit on boards of trustees in charitable giving organisations. So that's another angle to have a look at. And also keep track of your research. So when you carry out research, whether it's a simple spreadsheet, but just keep a track of it so that you're not wasting time having to kind of go back over research when you've already put time and effort into looking into them. When you've kind of matched yourself to a potential funding, so whether that's applying to your local authority for funding, whether it's applying to your local community foundation, the application process is often quite simple and quite similar. It will either be an online form that you'll need to fill in information in, and it will be standard information about you as an organisation, what your financial account figures are, what your purpose is, what your charitable purpose is, what the project is that you're asking for, or they may want you to send something in terms of a kind of covering letter and what we class as a case for support. So that's your opportunity to put forward your project, to showcase it amongst many others, to make it stand out from the crowd, to hopefully then secure funding. And I've actually got an example of a case for support that I'll give Lily as well, that she can share with you, with just some kind of key headings to make sure that when you're putting your case forward, you're keeping it focused and you're kind of providing all the information to the funder that they'll be looking for. But it's all about demonstrating what your need is. So why is the project that you want to secure funding for, why is that needed? and if you deliver that project, what impact is that going to make? They're kind of the two key things that you need to address in order to make a funder take notice and want to actually fund it. So it's all about why you need it and what difference you're going to make. So it's making them feel like if they don't give you the funding, X will happen, but if they give you the funding, then you'll better take them on this amazing journey and you'll better realize something at the end of it. In terms of follow-up, I'm a real believer in terms of follow-up. Quite often, I don't know if any of you on the call have got any experience of applying for sort of funding, but you can quite often send out quite a lot of applications to not hear very much back from many of them. We always say in Trust and Grants, it can be quite a demotivating role at times, but it's one that you have to keep trying and keep going, because when the donations do come in, it's really positive. But I always say try to follow up on an application. If you haven't heard, don't just take it as a no, because sometimes they can be, especially now in the current climate, quite overloaded with applications for a meeting. So it might be that yours has been pushed back to a future meeting. So always try and pick up the phone and give them a call or drop them an email. And if they do decline, always try and ask for feedback as well. Some funders will provide feedback, others won't. But feedback's really helpful then when you're putting forward that next application, because it can help you direct sort of what areas were successful, what areas maybe needed to be tweaked or changed. So I always try and sort of speak to someone on the phone if I can do. And then once you've actually got funding, the kind of crucial step is all about managing that funding and making sure that what you said in your application you were going to deliver and the impact that you were going to achieve, that you're actually recording that, so that actually when it comes to it and you need to report back to your funder, you're not making that job harder for yourself. So you're not sort of 12 months down the line suddenly then thinking, oh, we said we were going to do this, have we recorded that? Do it along the process as you go through the project delivery, so that at the end of the grant, because most funders will want a report of some sort, whether it's just a 2-page update or whether they actually have an online evaluation form that you have to complete. So it's about making sure that at the start of it, you're aware what you've said you're going to deliver, and then tracking that through the project delivery. So at the end of it, it then becomes easier for you in terms of reporting back to the funder. And one of the things I'd say in that is collecting evidence, sort of the people that you're working with, so that your users that are benefiting from your projects and your services are really powerful in that. You know, people's photographs, quotes from people, snippets of interviews with them telling, you know, the difference that your project made or the difference that your services brought to their life is really powerful. And more funders are valuing that now more than actual written content. They're really liking those sound bites, those personal stories, the impacts that it's made to someone's life. So I would say try and collect that sort of stuff as you go along. And then the other one is just about relationship management. So if you've been successful and you've secured some funding from an organisation, if you successfully manage that relationship, it can quite often lead to future funding. It may be another year's funding, it may be sort of 3 to 5 years funding. So never underestimate the sort of importance of building that rapport with the funder. You know, invite them to any events you've got, invite them to open days, send them snippets along the project. So if something amazing has happened at the time, send them a quick photo and a quick sort of one-liner to just let them know, so you're always kind of in contact with them. Also make sure if they've set any deadlines for you to hit or key milestones, make sure you hit those. And if there's an issue, because it always happens, especially through the pandemic, with our own personal projects, a lot of our milestones were moved because obviously we couldn't deliver at the time due to circumstances, and that's okay, and funders understand that. But I would say just be honest, pick up the phone and tell them that. I think as long as you keep funders informed, then they will be more than happy and more than understanding with that. But yeah, relationship building is definitely key if you want to lead on to future giving with funders. And I mentioned earlier sort of some useful tools that you can use out there. So I've looked, I've quoted the free online ones, because there are obviously some online ones that you can pay for, but that depends on the size of your organisation and whether that's, you know, feasible for you. But there's also a number of great tools out there. And on the later slide, I've actually included the links for you as well, so that you can just, when Lily shares it with you, you should just better click straight through to it. So Charities Excellence Framework is an amazing tool. It's set up by an ex-Trust and Grants fundraiser. It's free. He regularly updates it with new funds that have been launched. They're all categorized. You can do searches by geographical location, by area of focus, depending on what your organization does. It's a really powerful tool. For a free tool, it's a really, really helpful tool. Grants Online is another free search website, and that covers a variety of different grants, including local authority grants as well, not just charitable trust grants. And then the Community Foundations website, I think there's about 46 community foundations around the UK, and they have various different programs open throughout the year, and they are very, very encouraging and supporting on the ground organisations. So they're a really, really good organisation to get in with. And they basically will manage quite a lot of local funders who don't want to fund directly. They will pour their money into local community foundations, and then the community foundation has the responsibility of divvying that funding out. Charities Commission website as well, obviously, is a really good tool as well. So you can search up and find further details about charitable organisations there in terms of trustees, what areas of funding they tend to give, what charities they like to support. They'll also have their copies of annual accounts on there as well, so you can see which charities that they've supported previously. So that can be quite a good tool to sort of dig around a little bit more. And then Facebook's been really, really helpful. I think it came to its best during the pandemic, when a lot of trust and fundraisers couldn't get together and have the sort of community face to face. So there's quite a lot of helpful Facebook groups out there now, fundraising Trust Fundraising Hub, and people are always sharing ideas on there. So if someone's looking for funding for particular projects, they might put a post on, and then you tend to get numerous people coming back suggesting people that they could apply to. So they've really come to the forefront. And also, if any of you are members of the Institute or the Chartered Institute of Fundraising now, each local area has their own group, and there is one in the Chilterns group, and it is a paid for membership, although I think you can belong to the Facebook group without being a paid member. And again, they host regular meetings where they talk about successful funding bids they've put in, challenges they might be facing, projects that they're looking to fund. So again, it's just another network and resource out there to kind of support you and help you in that funding. These are the links to some of those websites that I mentioned earlier. So I will make sure that Lily shares this with all of you guys so that you can access that. And also, in terms of the case for support, I've got a template there as well, as I said earlier. So I'll make sure that Lily shares that with all of you as well. It just gives sort of some key headings that you can put in, and also some ideas of things to be thinking about when you're writing your content under those. Generally, we tend to say we try to keep it to 4 sides of A4, no longer than that, because quite often when you're putting an application forward, you'll be up against numerous others, and the person reading them is kind of doing a bit of a sift and putting them into piles of yes, no, maybe. They won't actually sit there and read the whole amount of it. So it's all about positioning your project kind of really in the first page, and then the rest of the details afterwards, which the trustees will read if your application is successful going forward. And that is open to questions. I'd be really interested, I suppose, from the room to hear a little bit about if people have sort of what experience they've had